everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the Drone Age dev server and it's time to have a look at the new top tier for France aviation. It is the Mirage 2000C-S5. Now this vehicle, it has to be noted at this moment in time, does not have its correct radar. The radar that it will actually have when it comes to the game will be a lot more powerful than the one that it has here, the Serrano Ibis one. It will have a lot more features in it, and hopefully if there's a second dev server, then I'll be able to cover it for you to make sure that, you know, we're all on board when it comes to how powerful that is, because a lot of the use of this vehicle is unfortunately tied into its radar. Just like how a lot of vehicles, like the F-14 that just got added, if you take the radar away from that one, then it just becomes a bit of a Sidewinder launcher and nothing else. So the Mirage 2000C is going to be no different to that, but it still has a lot of nice features on top of the radar which will make it incredibly fun to play. So when we look in the vehicle, it does have CCIP and RP for everything. The Mirage 2000 is, at least in game, labeled as a jet fighter, but will have opportunities to use secondary ordnance as pretty effective in things like ground or even air if you want to kind of drop things off. It is powered by the Snecma M53P2 with a nearly 10,000 kgf of afterburning thrust, which will be really nice on it. The rest of it is made out of fuel. It's a ton of fuel on the vehicle itself, because of course it is quite a modern machine. And looking at its modifications, before we do that I should show you, it is after the F1C. I thought they were going to put it after the F1CT, but instead they've decided to stick it after the F1C over here, so it's going to be in the left-hand line. If you haven't played the Mirages, by the way, I would highly recommend them. They've been really fun to grind through. You just need, obviously, you know, the countermeasures and the nice missiles, and it looks like they're actually adding some extra stuff to these. Oh, the Mirage 3C gets the Matra R511. Oh boy. But anyway, the Mirage 2000C comes in at the end of the left-hand line, and when we have a look at its mods, one of the things that it gets stock, which is really cool, is it gets access to stock Magic 1s. So Magic 1s are some of the best missiles in the game. They have a very good overload. They also only lock in the rear aspect, but usually if your setup's good then it's fine, and they have a really good missile guidance as well. One of the missiles which is better than the Magic 1 though is the Magic 2. The difference between them is the Magic 2 is an all-aspect magic, and a lot of all aspects are generally not too maneuverable when they start off with, because if let's say two planes are coming towards each other, then the time that it takes for them to close the distance is very small, so the missile has to react incredibly quickly. The Magic 2 is one of those missiles which does react incredibly quickly, meaning that even in head-ons it can be very, very effective. The Magic 2 is actually at the end of getting the Matras, which are of course these semi-active missiles. So you can bring along two Magic 1s or two Magic 2s backed up by two 530Ds or Fs. Both of these are semi-active radar homing. At the moment, looking at them, they both have exactly the same stats when it comes to the game, so we'll have to see if that changes going forward, which one's going to be better, which one's going to be worse. It also can carry the AS-30 Nords, the massive air-to-ground missiles, which have a TNT equivalent of 115 kilos. These are very useful in ground forces because they overpressure stuff very well. They guide incredibly well as well, and generally can just nuke anything that it touches. At 11.3 though, you're going to be running the Leclercs, so it might be pretty rough to run stuff with it in the air since there's a lot of radar AAs and stuff like that, but I think the Mirage will be fine with dealing with that stuff. It does have an RWR on it, so it will know when it's been locked and so on and so forth of that nature. It also has access to snebs. You can get 72 of them if you want, and then also some 250 kilo bombs. So if you want help trying to grind out the modifications on this, I suppose you can do that. You can get the bombs first or the rockets and then get everything else. But I think it would just be much better just to use this thing as a superiority fighter. Obviously at top tier, we have some pretty decent ones right now, the MiG-23 and the F-14, but the Mirage 2000 should come in and be pretty efficient and effective as well. I think the preset of the 2 Magics and then the 2 530s is the way to go, whichever 530 is better. Since it is an 11.3 vehicle and also pretty modern, it does get access to countermeasures, but it doesn't get access to a lot of them. So this might be a bit of a problem for the vehicle. Right now it only has access to 24 of them, whereas a lot of vehicles at this BR have way more than just the standard 24. You can actually see it. I think this is where it's modeled on the back. I'm probably wrong on that though. I'm usually not great at I'm not great at seeing where the countermeasures come out. But yeah, it doesn't have a lot. Maybe it might even be here, but that kind of looks like just a standard vent. If you compare it, for example, to the top tier meta at the moment, the F-14 has 60 of them, so over double the amount for its survivability. And also pretty much a lot of the top tier machines get the EFS module now, which if you get set on fire, it puts out your engine. Or it puts out the fire, but it kills your engine, so you have a chance of getting back to base, which is interesting. The MLA has access to 72 countermeasures as well, which is something that is definitely rough when you compare it to the Mirage 2000, which only has access to 24. It does get 2 30mm DEFAs though. I really like DEFAs. DEFAs are very fun to use, especially at high tier, when you can just do a little bit of damage to an enemy and they lose so much of their ability to move and go around the air. So having that's really nice. And since it's a delta wing design and it has a very powerful engine, you can throw this thing about in the air and do ridiculous maneuvers in it compared to other things, which just makes it super fun to use. Like for me, France is one of those tech trees where it's incredibly up and down. The starter jets that they have are not very good. They are very rough to use and usually end up in frustration for me. But since I've got further through the tech tree and I've got access to stuff such as the Mirage 3s, for example, and also even other vehicles around the BRs, like even the F100 I've had a bit of fun with, I feel like it's just been improving over time, like over and over and over again, to be much better as we push around. So I don't think that going into the future for something like France, that they're going to be in a bad place. They're one of those nations which has a ton of stuff that they can add, has a ton of stuff that they can offer, and the Mirage 2000 series is one of those vehicles which can definitely come in and move forward. You can see the countermeasures come from the bottom actually, so they fire downwards, which is at least kind of cool. But I think personally, looking at a machine like this, I do think that it is going to do well. This is not going to be what would be classed as a bad machine or something that won't do a lot in the game. It is going to be one which maybe not meta-defining, but easily up there compared to many other nations which don't even have 11.3s on the table at the moment or have any decent 11.3s compared to what people kind of think about. The French have been spoiled with the Mirage F1C and the F1CT. I've seen a lot of people saying that they're not great, but I've also seen a ton of pilots do extremely well in them. And the fact that I even see them at top tier compared to most other nations shows that you know, they are doing well, kind of similar to stuff like the Kafir. It's amazing how fast the AIs can go, by the way, since they don't have to worry about general speeds or anything. But yeah. There's the good old missile. Kaboom. Not bad. The 530s are very good missiles. The only thing that the 530s don't do well is you know, well, the 530s themselves do everything pretty well. The major issue with them is not them, it's actually their radar that's attached to them. So the radar is going to be really important on this thing, but it should be good, or it should be at least competent compared to a lot of the other ones that kind of sit around the place. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it should be pretty fun. Will it be the new meta-defining plane? I mean, probably not. It's very fast, and you know, it pulls pretty hard when it wants to. You can chuck it around the place quite easily. Like, it still has very good maneuverability even at these high speeds, and it has all of the things that can make it the best in the game. But the F-14 just has more munitions, it has more countermeasures, and it also has the speed and everything else. You can see where the exceed limit is on this thing as well, 1300. It does rip itself in a straight line at low areas, so you've got to be a bit careful of that. But yeah, doesn't mean that you can't have a bit of fun. I really hope they add the cockpit to this thing. I'm sure they will. I bet you it'll look really cool as well. As always though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman675, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Jerry Prevolt, Megadino King, Orange Tail, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Uncle Bean, Sem Arslan, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.